Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to call our Fayetteville City Council meeting Tuesday, September 3rd, work session to order. Welcome those who are joining us in the audience, those who may be tuning in remotely. I do have a couple council members, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Banks McLaughlin said they're en route, so we'll kick it off. I have not spoken to Councilmember McNair, but I'm sure she'll make her way here. But Council, as with all meetings, we typically start with the invocation. I'll look to my friend and Minister DJ Hare, if he wouldn't mind giving us a prayer.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Even though he's got on the wrong hat today. Need to ask for forgiveness for that, brother.
This is all about the power. I think there's some more power people in this room. Okay, thank you, Mayor. Dear Heavenly Father, once again, God, I just thank you for this week. I thank you for how you've been blessing me and healing me and just making me stronger, and I'm just so thankful. I thank you for the council members, the meeting that we're getting ready to have, the agenda that we're getting ready to go through, the presentations that we're going to have. We ask you, Lord, to just continue to help us and work as much as we can on one accord and have a vision for the citizens of Fayetteville. All of the explosions and the shootings that are happening all over the globe, Father, we ask you to uplift those families that are going through bereavement right now. And only you can strengthen them in a way that no human, no card, nothing else can uplift them more than you. And Father, we just thank you for Fayetteville. We continue to thank you for our growth and the positive vision and growth that we have. And people are doing all they can to move to our community, and we welcome them with open arms. And Lord, just continue to look over us, continue to protect us. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilmember Hare. Councils, we move to 4.0. We have City Manager's report. He's good to go, seeing no item issues there. 5.0 is the approval of the agenda. Council entertain a motion. All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Hare. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Davis. Any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda? All right, Council, I'll look to you for your votes on that item. Oh, are we live on the? Okay. Who are we missing? Okay, all right. Motion carries unanimous by those voting. Council has moved to item 6.01, the Market House Project Pedestrian Improvement and Traffic Mobility Discussion. Mr. Hewitt. All right. I have the engineer, Mr. Reeves. Yes, sir. How you doing?
Mayor and Council. So today we're going to talk to you about Market House pedestrian improvement and traffic mobility. This kind of builds upon what Council has already seen earlier this year. I think back in February it was presented as part of the Market House repurposing study. I think two options were given for kind of the footprint of the Market House. I won't read it word for word here, but one way you could have extended the circular brick promenade. The other, you could put a square, what we're calling a square about in. So these were kind of two areas of what that rendering looked like. Council's direction at that time was to further analysis and look more toward the square about. So what we're going to talk to you about is kind of what we're proposing the next step for this to be. Some project considerations for this are constructability. So what we want to look at is existing utilities and surface features that are around the Market House. Also want to talk about structural evaluations and vibration monitoring. That's not a big part of what we're scoping out today, but it is something to consider down the road. When PwC did a project downtown a number of years ago, they did structural evaluations and vibration monitoring on some of the historic buildings. So that's something that you need to consider moving forward as construction takes place down there. Again, functionality. Really want to talk about pedestrian mobility versus traffic mobility. The more pedestrian friendly you are, the more difficult it will be for traffic to get around the square. Traffic control type is going to be a big one. I've got it bold. I'm going to talk a little more detail about that on the next slide. Current and future traffic flow. So we want to look at not just what's going through the market house today, but what's going on out into 2050. Again, we'll look at stacking and queuing. And what I mean by stacking and queuing is now you have kind of free flow going into the roundabout with yield signs. How does changing it to a square affect the stacking and how cars are backed up in that intersection? And if they are backed up a certain length, how does that affect side streets that we have? Then emergency services and tractor trailers. One thing we want to make sure is that we can get our emergency services through this new square. The largest fire engine needs to be able to get through there. Another consideration is I don't know if you've seen, but tractor trailers like to go around the market house instead of using MLK like they should. A lot of those tractor trailers come downtown, so how do we deter that? And then, we want to stay on budget. So all we have right now is a very high-level conceptual cost opinion that's based on lump sum items. So to talk about the traffic control type, one big question that we want to make sure council is aware of, being the direction was to go forward with the square about, is will the traffic entering a square about, will it have to make stops at a stop sign, or will we be able to maintain the yield signs? So if you think about it, if a vehicle is entering in the square, it may have to make 4 complete stops before it makes a left-hand turn. So how does this impact the stacking of traffic, and are other streets impacted? You can imagine going through the square or going through the circle now and having to stop at each intersection. How does that back traffic up? Are we considering future downtown development and growth with this approach? And then again, emergency response impacts. If you now have an intersection that's congested with traffic, how does that affect response times? So these are just considerations to think about as we move forward. So what we're proposing is that further evaluation is needed before we move this project forward any. First, we want to talk about survey. We do need some field survey out there so we know what's on the ground. We need to know where the underground and above ground utilities are. We need to know where the street signs are, the change in elevation from the bricks and steps that are all around the market house. So that's where we're talking about picking up above ground features, steps, curb and gutters, planters, the changes in surface. I don't know if many of you have walked out there, but there's certain ways you can't get down depending on where you're walking. Then we're going to look at a traffic operational and safety analysis. So what we're going to do is we're going to do traffic counts under various scenarios at these locations, these 3 intersections. Various scenarios are just a general weekday, one weekend, and then if we can, we're going to try to squeeze in if we can do it with the Woodpeckers game going on. We'd also review the current conditions and future traffic volumes, delays, the level of service, and again, the queuing in the circle. We'll also look at a crash analysis so we can do an evaluation of the existing safety performance. So is it very anti-pedestrian as it is now? Then we're going to develop more of those conceptual evaluations that you guys have already looked at. So we'll develop those alternatives based off the acquired survey. Can the traffic square fit? Is it more appropriate for the circle to be expanded? We also want to identify the impacts to the existing right-of-way, impacts to the utilities. I don't know if you pay attention when you go around the market house now, you can see catch basins. So if we're going to extend that promenade, where do the catch basins need to go? We want to make sure that we're not leaving standing water in the intersection. And then we'll have a better cost estimate that are actually based on quantities and not lump sum estimates. And with that, we'll be better able to evaluate the scope of the project versus the available budget that we have for the improvements. So with that, our I guess ask or recommendation is that we move forward with this traffic operational and safety analysis, the survey, and those conceptual reviews. And that'll take about 5 to 6 months. We would come back in March and present those alternatives. And if council still wants us to move forward with the project, you're looking at an additional 6 months to have construction drawings, and then bidding and construction services another 12 months. So you would look at the project construction completed in August of 26. So That's the end of it.
Ms. Reyes, I did have a question in addition to several council members. So we've got Councilmember Green here, and then I'll ask mine, and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some questions and, quite frankly, a few concerns. Can you explain a little bit about, on the bullet number 1, let me get the slide, under the cost estimates, based on quantities, not lump sum estimates? Can
Yes.
you break that down for me?
Okay, so when they did the conceptual high-level estimate, it was based on lump sum items. So they might have had lump sum items for the brick pavers, lump sum items for, I don't know, utility conflicts. But what I'm saying, we'll actually have quantities, is that we'll, with our survey data, we'll be able to tell you how many square yards of brick pavers we need. We'll have a more detailed estimate of
Okay.
actually what needs to go there.
So the prior report we got back in February, when we discussed this, the first time I was on council, you basically, option A, if I have my notes right, was between 500, 800,000. So those were just large concept amounts, not down to, we need 42 yards of cement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. My other concern is this timeline. It just seems like this is the project that's not going to end. We voted back in February, as I said, to move it forward. Here we are again. We've been asked again to look at it, for it to be reviewed. How many times do we need to review something before we actually move it forward? I'm very frustrated, and I understand why the public gets frustrated with us. Because it seems like we study it and we study it and we study it, and by the time we study it, nobody cares about it anymore. I do not want to get to that with this project. This project is too important in moving the city forward to get stuck and caught up in not getting this done. I'd like to do it correctly, but not at the expense of that we just keep belaboring it and keep talking it to death. So somebody please help me understand, because I look back and this was first begun, it was directed out of a 2021 meeting. So please, somebody make it make sense. Thank you. That's not totally directed at staff. That's everybody in general,
Right.
but
Well, I think that this is a project that has, continues to grow and go. And part of it is that for the members who were here when the Market House was damaged, and I'm not sure who all was actually on council that night, there was significant community conversations and with council members about whether we would even repair it, whether it would be moved or whether it would be torn down. We worked through that, but staff was ready within 90 days to repair it. We actually had it all lined up. We had it cleaned up pretty much largely within a week. But there needed to be a lot of unanswered and unresolved community conversations around a difficult history that was the Market House. That took a long time. Then we went into a phase where it was, okay, what are we going to do with the symbol of the city? And I'm going to be quick. Symbol of the city of Fayetteville, but I think it is imperative for people who were not on council, and then for anyone who is not familiar with and just sees it as an ongoing project. The council rightly had to say, is that the face that we want as our logo? And those are very, very difficult conversations. I don't think, except for the folks who were on council and some members on staff who were here, it led to us looking at replacing trash cans, rebranding, city coins, and all of that took time. Adding to that, we had a mural painted around the Market House and all of the issues that were surrounding that. And we were ready to move forward. We had repurposed the Market House. And from the very beginning, we all recognized that pedestrian safety was important. But I mean, I know I said that it is, Jim Arp was the one that used to say it, you don't put, bird feed in the middle of the road and then wonder why the birds go in the middle of the road. That Market House is in the middle of a busy traffic circle. And so in order to allow it to be pedestrian friendly, it takes a lot of work to try to do that because it is very busy. So we went through that process of the rebranding, what was going to be used for, and the Department of Justice, I think the mayor and some others knew some people at the Department of Justice who were able to help us work through an entire process. And Yamil, is she here? Here from Human Relations. We prepared a report and we brought it to the City Council, and the City Council said, this is great, but it don't have enough community feedback. So Council sent staff back for several weeks or months for us to get more feedback. And then we came back and we said, okay, we encouraged work with Eric Lindstrom and others to come up with conceptual ideas about how it could be redone. Same time, we got money from the state. The council was putting forward money. There was questions about whether we put an elevator on it so it's accessible, ADA accessible. But at the point where we had our other architect, very talented, everyone knows Eric Lindstrom and folks in Human Relations, it was how do we repurpose the area? It was not the how do we do it, brick and mortar, traffic circle, and all that other stuff. And frankly, when we came back in February, I know I made as impassioned a plea as I could without giving y'all my thoughts always, which I said, please don't pick the traffic square. Please don't do that. Because again, because I didn't know we had to do stop at every corner. But now that we realize you've got to do a stop at every corner, but that was the interest of the majority of council except for two, I think it was two, members who were present at that time. Byron is back saying we need to study it and do a traffic impact analysis. Now, even if you say, okay, just do the square, the circle, do the circle, keep the circle. Byron, Brian, Sheila, and all of our engineering folks have heard the plea. Tell us what you're going to do it, keep it on budget, keep it on schedule. In order to do that, that's this analysis that they have to do now, which had not been done. If we were to go back and were to say, okay, just repurpose it, put some ADA ramps down, keep the traffic circle as it is, we would still come back to you and say we want to do a traffic impact analysis because we know just down 2 blocks over, the county is putting in the Performing Arts Center, and it would be really nice to know how that entire area is going to function. When the county did their TIA, they did not go to the Market House. And so we're bereft of that, don't have that data. But this project has morphed from that night in which it was burned. And at every step of the way, the council was informed, the council fully participated. And we have been lockstep and very, very slow and deliberate because it does mean so much to the community on both sides of the equation. And so I would love if we could accelerate this somewhat with the bids back in under 12 months. But Byron and Brian and Sheila being the engineers they are and hearing the plea that I've made and you've made and the community makes that we do this once and we do it right, that's the schedule that they're here to provide you today.
All right, so let me give just a little context, to that long explanation the manager gave, but
accurate.
Of which I knew
Long
all
but
of.
accurate.
But
That's okay.
at the end of it, of course, we knew when things were at the height of it, and when the Justice Department came in, and Human Relations did a great job, multiple conversations to say that they wanted, it was, do we tear it down, do we leave it alone, or do we do something different? And overwhelmingly, it was to do something different. Lobbied the state to get the $1.5 million to do it. Now that's like 21, 22. I'm with you. There has been a lot of, but I think the community made a decision that they wanted to keep it, but they wanted to enhance it and tell the true story. I think that was what was told to the state to get the money, in addition to some of the other projects that they funded to do that. Martin Luther King, the History Center, Emoja, all of those were included in that same allocation. I am with you. I wasn't here today. Y'all came up to whether it's square or round, but I'm with you, to see how we get to this point from 21 to 22 to 26, 27 is tough for me after the community has already said what they want. So I think I would like to get a little more detail on that when I get to my part of it. That's what we're asking. You're now coming back with what was agreed upon at the last meeting. But, we need to see how it is that it didn't go from 21 when the community spoke to 27. or late 26. So, but I'll go to Councilmember Hare and then Mayor Pro Tem and then Benavente.
And yes, and thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my colleague to my right on her questions. It has been a ongoing process with the Market House, and I also echo that our human relations did a very, I think, thorough job, or at least a very good job, with the surveying of our citizens. So I would like to know what extended surveying would you be speaking of, since we did do that, and that was one of our goals at the time. So all good questions, all good scenarios, and bringing it together. One of my concerns, or at least my questions, that is maybe a little bit more left of a sidebar to enhance with the rest of the community. I would love to see how we are going to discourage the 18-wheelers. I would love to see that from the use of that area, or the use of going around the Market House. And when we do that, I'm hoping that we can use that same or some of that data and how we can help with some of our no trucks, 18-wheeler no through truck areas. Number one, as I highlight the Murchison Road all the time. When we did that, gosh, that was when Senator Rand and I were together working on it, and he was our majority leader, but we don't have that taken care of. It's still, folks are running back and forth through there. So I would love to see how that input comes, and can we use some of that same input for some of our corridors and other streets where we have those state signs stated. I think they say no through trucks, which basically are asking no 18-wheelers, which we started that at the Murchison Road corridor. First sign went up at Rowan Street and Murchison Road. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I understand everything that happened up until we had our meeting to make our decision. And where I am frustrated at is that we had two options. We asked the questions, and we were told it will be fine. That 911, the emergency vehicles could go through. We can pull the tape because I asked the question, because I voted for the square. I voted for the square. What I see downtown is people there enjoying downtown, making a bigger space. I wanted that. And we asked the questions about this. So I guess where my frustration is, we had two options, we picked an option, and now we're coming back and saying, well, that's probably not gonna work. So,
We're not saying that it's not gonna, we're not saying that it's not
Say it's
gonna
gonna be
work.
2 or 3 years.
it's gonna be,
Yeah, but not to go back to the square. That's what I'm asking. I thought we voted for it to be round.
no,
for it to be
we
square.
voted for it to be square. Yes, we voted for option B.
I know it was unanimous.
Yes, so I guess that's where my frustration is, and, that it's gonna be much longer to do it. So then my next question is, and I'm sorry I came in late, where the square is and we have the cap-offs up at the top of each point, am I making sense?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so can we take those off and that would still keep it going around?
So do you have to have the same promenades, the gray portion at all 4 points or 2 points?
No, I don't necessarily think you have to, you mean where it's coming up to a point, could you kind of square it off?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a potential option that we could see once we get it into detailed survey and design, yeah.
So, and I fully agree on what we had to do and the timeline that we did it to have our residents talk about it. I mean, that was one of the things we won the All-American City for, is because we let everybody kind of get their thoughts together, wait, and cooler heads prevail. So, but now, I think it's time, and we have to make the decision, and 2026 is just too long. I mean, that's 6 years. That's too long. So, I was gonna say, to make a motion that we go back to the round, but now looking at this, I kind of want to hear what everybody else thinks about that option.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Benavente and then Davis. I'm sorry. Benavente, then Courtney Banks, McLaughlin, and then Davis.
Thank you, Mayor Colvin. I was not a city council person at the time that all of this was happening. I did get to participate as a citizen in some of the market house surveying, and I guess I just wanted to push back a little bit and say there was not some great consensus just to repurpose the market house. I think that was the unfortunate compromise, because obviously folks want to see it moved. There are folks who want to see it, move it to the North Carolina History Center area. Those people aren't going to be satisfied by repurposing it. So I think there's still conversations to be had about what does repurposing mean. And I think we got stuck on just making the shape different, as that was going to be the solution. But I think about what Councilmember Green was kind of sharing her concerns about, and we've had people come to public forums kind of upset about the mural that's around the market house. And as somebody who was a part of those demonstrations, I can tell you that we didn't want the mural. The mural always felt very performative, and it wasn't actually policy change that we were demanding. So if it helps us with folks in the community who are concerned about the mural and the amount of time that the mural is going to stay out there, because I think that's really what's at issue here, I'd like to make a motion to remove the mural, and that way we can take the requisite time to do the necessary studies as it relates to the Performing Arts Center, as it relates to all the considerations about impact on business that even a bigger circle will have. Because I feel like there's sort of two competing priorities here. What's best for traffic and commerce, and then people's personal issues with the mural and seeing that removed sooner than later. So if that's an issue, I'll tell you that most people who are on the side of community safety, public safety reform, were not impressed by that mural to begin with. And so if that's a sore subject for certain people in the community, just take it up, and that way we can take the necessary time to do this right, even if that is 2026.
Thank you, Councilmember. Just from my recollection, being one of the council members that had to make the decision, none of the decisions that were made pertaining to this by me and none of the other colleagues that I could remember in our discussion were about the folks who wanted to demonstrate. The demonstrators had 2 or 3 other concerns that were unrelated to this. And so, what we tried to capture in having the Justice Department lead a citywide conversation for several months was the consensus of the community as best we could capture it. 200,000+ people, whatever percentage vote came and showed up and expressed themselves. They've got detailed information about who went where, and that's why we got a third party to do it at the time. So it really wasn't driven by those 20, 30 people who, we still see many of those at every other meeting for various, things that are important to them. But I just don't want that to be the centerpiece or implied that our decision to do a mural had anything to do with that at the time, as someone that was sitting in the chair and in the room. So I'll just say that, but I'll go to Councilman Banks, McLaughlin, Davis, and then we'll entertain whatever action you want to do on that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a bit frustrated myself. I was actually serving on council when this came up. Actually, I am the council member who brought up the proposal to remove the market house. And it ended up coming to us repurposing the market house. We did have our human relations. It went to them. We voted to it go to the human relations so that the community could have some input. Maybe I'm confused, but I'm not understanding how we got to this point. I would like to hear what was the community feedback. I'm not sure if pedestrian walkway, crosswalk was a part of the repurposing. I mean, I'm no architecture, but repurposing doesn't sound like starting with the sidewalks to start with the market house. I know there was conversations about possibly having organizations come in and kind of tell a story of the market house. So I'm just trying to figure out, how did we get here? And I cannot support spending, I think, was it $1 million towards pedestrian walkway? I mean, I travel a lot. I love to travel. And I think if we're going to do anything, we need to close off Hay Street and make it walkability so that, you know, no car should even be driving up Hay Street. It should just be more of a people come into our area, you can walk, go to the different vendors or go to the different businesses and should support that way. So I will not be supporting funding it to go towards pedestrian, because I don't foresee that that's what the community wanted, especially when I brought up this proposal back in, I think, 20 or 21. So I will not be supporting this if that's the way council is leading. And again, I don't think the community wanted this. They didn't want it to start with a pedestrian street. If I am wrong, or the numbers are a little bit different, or the community input says something different, I would like to see that. But I don't think that their concern was pedestrian walkway. Thank
Right,
you,
it
Mayor.
was museum and to tell,
Tell the
stories about
story,
Mr.
not-
Beebe and
so
others.
I don't understand how we got with
Yeah.
the pedestrian walkway.
All right, that's a good question. You want to address that question as a part of our repurposing? Were you looking to spend repurposing money that we got from the state on pedestrian access?
Council, this was part of what was covered in February, and I did go back, and I was not at that meeting. I apologize. That was when I was away with a sick family member. But the flavor of the conversation that you're having right now is the flavor of the conversations that we've had since 2021. And we were, in order to make the Market House accessible as a museum, it would require an elevator. And an elevator, we do not know if it is possible, because you would still have to handle the pedestrian access issues to get to an elevator at the Market House. We'd had also conversations, council members who were here may recall that we own the old City Hall, and there was an opportunity or thought that we would build a new children's museum. Remember those conversations, Mayor? And that we would repurpose the old City Hall as a multicultural activity. Then we also had the Black Voices Museum, which we, the city and the county, have funded to tell the story of the community. All of that against the backdrop of when we were talking about the North Carolina Reconstruction and History Museum as well up at the Arsenal. This has been a multi-layered issue, and staff has not been able to, not willing to go through, but faster than the council and the community. And that's why what we're here today to ask you to do is to allow us to do a traffic impact analysis that will give us information about how best to put in pedestrian access points and where, and how to handle the intersection between cars and pedestrians in that area. Once we get that data, we will be in a better position to determine what the future repurposing could be of the Market House. But if council is so inclined to give us direction as well, that based on what you've seen so far, which we believe it will be 4 stop signs if you do a square about, that you're more interested in us pursuing the roundabout, keeping it as a roundabout, but also gathering data for the pedestrian and vehicle, we can take that as well. But that's what's before you today.
So, Mr. Hewitt, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it, because I don't want us conflating issues. That whatever's going on with Black Voices, whatever the conversation was with repurposing the children's, 2 different conversations. One was there were schematics shown that if they put windows in the bottom, or using the bottom now that it's open to show information or plaques or history-related stuff about what actually took place there. Then there were conversations about if you do that, or you want to use the second floor, which is currently not accessible to the public now, so we would be no more out of compliance then with a repurposed Market House than we are now. you don't have the public accessibility to the second floor, so then the second floor would not be used. But I don't know that I ever remember seeing the cost of an elevator or the discussion that Councilmember Banks McLaughlin brought up about, are we talking about repurposing and using the dollars that the state gave us for that, for this, or are we talking about this in addition to or in place of? That's the question that I would like to know based on what she said. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, you had?
I'm just still waiting on the answer to how we got here with the pedestrian walk versus repurposing. Especially because we had our human relations go out into the community to do surveys and have community input. So where is that input? And do we have somebody? Where is she?
Well, she's waiting on a cue from Doug. I mean, because it's.
No, hold on. I just want to know what was the feedback from what the community wanted. Was that pedestrian walk or? So where is she?
Yamil is back there, but I would ask if we take a look at the minutes. And Michelle, can I borrow your laptop? I apologize. To what, again, I was, thank you.
And because if not, that was a waste of time for the community to come out and participate, and we didn't go off of what they actually wanted.
Well, again, there are a couple of things that council may wish to consider as well. In order to repurpose or use the Market House, and the mayor is correct, we had talked about enclosing the windows, having a space at the bottom. Right now, the Market House, the second floor, is accessible, but it's only accessible via stairs. But in order to do any of that, you still have got to get people from the sidewalk across the street to a raised platform, which is the Market House, safely. And so all of those considerations are the things that that you have to spend that money before you can do others. This was the first phase. But, and Yamil never needs an invitation from me. If anything, sometimes I have to actually ask her to pull back. So Yamil, if you want to come up, if you have anything to offer or share, you're always welcome to do that as well. Ms. Nazar, Human Relations Director, introduced this item and stated that the request of the City Council hosted 2 city spirit events and received community feedback on how to repurpose the Market House. Following the city spirit events, the Human Relations Commission conducted additional community engagement where information was gathered from approximately 500 additional residents. The 2 primary recommendations were to improve the Market Square ADA accessibility and create greater pedestrian safety. Therefore, the city contracted with SFLA for possible options to achieve these goals within the provided funds from the state. You don't have a touch screen?
So you see how you guys told them it had to be repurposing? The community didn't come to that consensus.
But that was the council's direction.
Right, so
Right.
that's very different from what you said. And that's why
No. It was based on. No, I mean there's nothing to laugh about. There were multiple. Oh yeah, right. Okay.
Your mic not on.
No. I got Councilmember Davis and then your second round.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think we're here to talk about the traffic control, correct? Is that what we're talking about? I believe at the bottom, the last bullet ends in red, and it says that option has the least amount of impact on existing traffic flow, correct? So with that being said, I would like to make a motion that we move back to option A to address the traffic control concern.
Okay.
So that is a motion that's on the floor.
Well, all right, I didn't hear a
it,
second. Yeah, so I did circle back. So because Councilman Benavente presented that, I'll see if there's a second for you. And repeat your motion, sir.
I'll be glad to. If we go with option A, Byron, is it still going to take X amount of time to do a survey for the traffic?
Yes.
Yeah,
everything
so either way.
everything we presented today would need to, would thoroughly vet these, would need to be done for either.
And it's going to take years either way, either shape. So my motion, because I think the real elephant in the room for people that have come to this board that have put pressure on us to do something about this has to do with the mural. And I'm telling you right now, Nobody wanted that mural on the
You
right.
can't-
No one wanted that mural from the left because it was all performative and it didn't address the root issues that we wanted was policy change. So my motion is to remove the mural because that way
Okay.
no one will be upset over the next 2-3 years as we get this survey information.
Yeah, so it's
So that's the motion.
all right, and this is a consensus anyway. Had a question on that, Councilman? Question?
Yeah, I thought that when we had this discussion about the mural, it came up, then it went back down, that when we were getting, I guess, to this point of the study, that there were plans put within that that would take the mural up anyway. So if that be the case, I don't see where I could support this particular motion since we already have that in place. I thought we had already voted on that. And just give me the feedback if I remember.
Well, we're going to see if
incorrectly.
he gets a second, then we can get to that point. All right, so there's a motion by Councilmember Benavente to,
If you'd like, Councilmember Hare. So I agree with you that if we just go with A or B, circle or square, it'll take 2-3 years of that study before it gets removed. And over the course of the 2-3 years, the people who are upset about it taking 2-3 years are going to be upset for 2-3 years. So we can remove the mural tomorrow, paint over it, and then the next 2-3 years will go off without a hitch because no one will have anything to be upset about as we do the necessary study.
Let's just see where the consensus is.
all right, so is there a second? All right.
All right.
So it fails for lack of a second. All right, so, all right, so seconded by
discussion.
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin. All right, and then discussion, I have Mayor Pro Tem, and then I have my button push.
So I want to go back to talking about the painting around the market house. Sitting in this chair in 2020 is a lot different than not sitting in this chair in 2020. There was a lot going on. And to hear that nobody wanted that
Nonsense.
is insulting. And I'm glad that you feel that that's good, that is insulting, because I will tell you, the council that was here in 2020 heard from everybody wherever we went. And hours were put into it. And I am very proud of this city of how we did handle things. Wasn't great all the time, but we kept rolling through. So when you say nobody wanted it, and we are in a meeting, the mayor and I, talking about building homes and getting people to move to Fayetteville, and the mural is being taken up, and we cannot even sit down. The phones were going, were they not?
Yeah.
When you say people didn't care, our phones were going off the hook. I'm on my turn to speak. I don't interrupt you, my turn to speak. So with that being said, what I will say is I think 2 years is too long to have it repurposed or what we're going to do around it. I do think that the mural is scuffed. It is coming up. It doesn't look as pristine as it did three years ago. So I do not think this has anything, to me, I don't even see it anymore. I don't, and I think it's just, but to sit here and say the reason why we're doing this is because of that mural might be your reason, but don't make it my reason. I thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome. All right. I did have something that I see, Councilmember Green, and since we're in the discussion on this consensus, all of this discussion about this, and I think that we've now fully conflated what we're talking about. We've gone from pedestrian and traffic circulation to the repurposing of Market House, which is a valid question, to now talking about the mural, which was a whole separate conversation. And to echo Mayor Pro Tem's, we can't speak for what everybody wanted because our world is only the universe that it is, the perspective that we have, as narrow or as broad as that is. And so that all of this is symbolism because this is not about a building that was built in the 1700s. It's what that means to certain people. The mural is about symbolism. It's not about letters in the street. It's about what it means to certain people. And we heard from those people what it meant, those who wanted it and those who didn't. Same thing with the market house. And I think opening up that discussion is really going to delay and conflate whatever conversation we're having about traffic, pedestrian expansion, on a path to repurposing. Now, the only thing that I would suggest, and I'm a little concerned, is that we're not talking about this in two phases. We've been asked to make a traffic pedestrian decision, and we're not having any more conversation about what the repurposing is. Are we making that promenade where it holds 50 people, or are we making it where it holds 25 people? Are we having a museum that is structured in a way that has markers in it or placards? We should be having these discussions simultaneously, because the sensitivity of this and the symbolism of this, because at the end of the day, this is not anything that's germane to anybody's life, but it's very important to a lot of people. Any change that we do to this is going to trigger this kind of discussion. So I would like the council's action and directive of repurposing this, the community conversation that we had and the promises we made for repurposing this, to be a simultaneous conversation to traffic flow and pedestrian expansion and pedestrian safety. And I think that would help us stay tuned on what the physical changes are versus the emotional changes that we're talking about. Now, council member put up a motion. It's his right to do so. And it's been seconded. So we're going to vote on that. But at the end of the day, we can't really speak for what means anything to certain people. There were people sleeping on the market house that it meant a lot to them about that. And there were others who thought that was completely ridiculous. But at the end of the day, we can't tell anybody how to feel about what it is. So I just think we need to just keep that in mind. But I'll go to Councilmember Green, and then we'll see if we're going to dispose of this, and then I'll go to Councilmember Davis if necessary. So Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, my comments to start with had nothing to do with the mural. I didn't think about the mural at all. Actually, when I was questioning the timeline, I just am ready to see movement. But since the mural was brought in, I'm just going to say personally, the only issue I've ever had with it was I felt like it represented exactly what you said, symbolism to a group of people that didn't represent everybody, and it represented one group that felt disenfranchised, and there's a lot of disenfranchised groups throughout our community. I mean, each of us individually are probably feel as if we are part of some disenfranchised group in one way or another. So I hated to see that representative of everyone when it didn't really represent everyone. So just for clarification's sake, but we're here, so.
All right. So is a motion by or consensus for Councilman Benavente, seconded by Councilman Banks McLaughlin. All right, Council, I look to you for action on that. Nobody called and said, I want it moved today.
Yeah, they did call and say they wanted a mural.
Yeah. All right, let's take the vote. That's what this process is all about. That's what's democratic. All right. Who didn't vote, Jennifer? All right. So motion fails. All right, Councilmember Davis, what was your motion, consensus motion, sir? Did you got the count? Okay. All right, Councilman Davis.
Yes, sir. My motion was I move that we choose the circle item, which is option A, because that simply addresses the concern of the traffic flow for downtown.
All right. Consensus motion to adopt A, seconded by Councilmember Hare. Just for clarification, Mr. Reeves, choosing A, does that eliminate any of the problems in this? I heard you say timeline is not going to matter. Does that eliminate any of your analysis, or how does that change your analysis?
We would still do the traffic analysis to see what expanding the circle would impact. So
And it still will have the same proposed schedule?
yes.
All right.
This was highlighted, so this was copied verbatim from what was presented to you all in
Right.
February.
I saw that.
So why was it So
I
on
mean,
here is what
that's
he's
saying
asking,
that
I
it's going
guess.
to cause the least.
It was highlighted in red in February as well.
But I'm saying it's saying that it's going to cause the least impact on the existing traffic flow, right? Versus the other option, right? Okay.
So I guess his question and mine, just a little more clarification. You're saying basically the same work and the vetting is involved, but you have a statement in red that says it's going to have the least traffic impact.
Yeah,
So how do those
from
two
the
things?
from the conceptual layouts here, it was foreseeing that just expanding the circle would have the least impact to traffic. However, we still don't know what that traffic volume is going to be. We don't know how it's going to impact your stacking, the queuing. We still don't know that. But I mean, just from a shape, it's going to impact it less than the square.
And so, Mayor, I want to, I guess, add this in as well. One of the reasons that the TIA is going to take so long is that they want to do it and study impacts for a baseball game, and baseball's almost over. They want to study it at Christmas, want to study it on schools in session, they want to study it at different times so that they can have a real understanding. But I also want everybody who's listening through the TV or the Market House is back to the way it was. The traffic flows around it, the building is repaired, every access point that you had before, it was damaged, it is still there. The Market House is back the way it was. The conversation that the council, I think, is having today and have had over time, as the mayor said, is how do we repurpose it, tell the accurate story. And the conversation that we're having today, specifically about these two options are, do you go around the Market House where the mural is currently located and create more of a pedestrian island? So therefore you take, because right now you're not supposed to drive where the mural's at right now. But do you put more of a hardscape out there? How big do you make it so that you're able to make it even more pedestrian friendly? But again, the Market House is still open and available and it looks and it's repaired. So the question becomes, that's what the study is going to look at and tell us, how much, how big, and all those other issues. It will also tell you, and this is where the engineering piece comes in and why it takes so long, is that right now, if you've ever been under the Market House and you've used one of the walkways, see where the walkways are at on the screen here? Is that the best place for those walkways? Are those accessible once you get to the center, or do you have to go in a particular way? Is there a way that you can elevate or raise it? All of those are going to be considerations which come in. But again, the Market House is repaired as the Market House was before it was damaged. This is about making it more pedestrian friendly and trying to remove as many conflicts between pedestrians and cars as you can while still maintaining the functionality of a traffic circle, square, or whatever else. And so I want to just add that in, Mayor, is that I don't want anybody to think that no work has been done in the Market House. The Market House is back the way it was. It's now figuring out how to enhance it for the next, what'd you say, 50 years?
It would look out to 2050.
Yeah, 25 years.
All right. Well, thank you. And just a question for you, Mr. Reeves. So the vibration monitoring couldn't be done in the 5 to 6 months while you're doing the traffic operational and safety analysis?
We would do that vibration monitoring all through construction as well. But yes, I wouldn't start that until we have a conceptual design that council said, yes, this is viable, move forward.
Okay. And the last question I had, as we get ready to take this vote, so there is no way that you see possible to accelerate this timeline?
We can try. It was pretty tight when I looked at it to start with. Maybe you could trim some off of the construction, but this is assuming all the dominoes fall in place.
Gotcha.
When we put it out, we get bids back.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Council, any other questions on this motion to go to A, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, then Councilmember Hare?
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarity, so just for the study, it'll cost $100,000?
Yeah, so to collect the survey, do the traffic analysis, and kind of vet those solutions was about $102,000.
102. Okay, have we ever even thought about possibly closing that street, closing Hay Street? What's the benefits of closing it? Or I'm sure that wouldn't cost nowhere near.
So we can definitely, that's one of the beauties of the traffic analysis. We will look into that as well, what that looks like. We can definitely study that as part of the traffic analysis.
Okay, so that study would, so that'd be A and B and closing Hay Street off?
I've heard some discussions about further conversation on other things outside of the engineering component. What we can do is come back and provide you information regarding closing out the area completely and what that does with the traffic flow in the surrounding areas.
And within that survey, will it be communicating with the business owners on Hay Street to see if they're interested in possibly?
That would be outside of what we do.
Oh, okay.
We can certainly incorporate that. We could come back with the engineering analysis to understand what the traffic flow would look like, but it would be a combined effort within our city, within our departments.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that's
It's
council's
a whole
interest.
different thing, like business on the close.
And who had that motion? Do you mind including that in your motion?
Do it need to be included in the motion, or can you just do that as the?
If there's an interest for council to evaluate what the community's interest is in understanding from a community's perspective. if
That's
it's-
not a engineering
That's not
task,
engineering,
is what
so
she,
we would want-
yeah.
That would be something that you would have to talk about. But from an engineering perspective, we will just do it anyway. We don't need your permission for that. We'll be doing it anyway.
Okay. All right.
Would you,
so-
because since that's your community, District 2.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because if we stick with option B, we're gonna get all these concerns about this traffic not flowing, and I'm gonna be the one to get those calls. So, but yes, I will add that in there. I would like to add that into my motion that we do the study to include Hay Street, the closing off of Hay Street. What that will, how that looks.
Okay, all right. Mayor Pro Tem and then Councilman Hare had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to ask, can I ask Bianca a question from Cool Springs? Can I do it? Bianca, can you come? So we have gone from traffic control to closing down Hay Street. So as a takes time, takes money, takes energy. So my question is, as a business owner, if I was down there, I would probably lose my mind if you were even contemplating that. So that's just my opinion. I don't have a business down there. So my question is, you know, for the sake of Council Member Davis, what do you feel that the business owners will feel about if they read in the paper a closed street? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because it's not my wheelhouse down there.
They would not be in favor of closing the street in
So if we close
perpetuity.
Ramsey Street, let's think about it on Murchison Road.
You know, in many cities, the urban pedestrian mall was a favorable move during early renewal in 1970 because we wanted to get in walkability as a response to the sort of suburban sprawl. It failed in many places, except for maybe Burlington, Vermont, where it's successful. Our streets are beautiful. We're lucky. We have 20-foot wide sidewalks. Mitch, during COVID, Mayor Colvin, wanted us to do streeteries, but we didn't have to because we have 20-foot wide sidewalks. We didn't have to close our streets because we could take advantage of these lovely sidewalks in the great urban form that we do have. I do think we need to be mindful about creating a community square somewhere, and that conversation is not here. That's another conversation. But Hay Street, the closing thereof, unfortunately, Councilman Davis would not be favored.
All right. Councilman Banks McLaughlin.
And I would say closing down, we have a trolley so that you can hop on that trolley and the trolley can go straight up Hay Street. When you're driving up Hay Street, I can tell you, I've passed so many buildings that I didn't even know exist because I was driving. But when I get out, park, and I'm walking up Hay Street, you're able to see those different businesses. And that's why we can utilize that trolley. Again, we talking about moving ahead. Like I mentioned, I travel a lot, and we're like one of the only cities who do not close off our streets and allow people to walk into different businesses and utilize the trolley. Like, how many people use the trolley currently?
Well, you know.
That's just my,
Well-
just my
Well,
opinion when
I
it
mean,
comes to that.
here's my perspective about that. Retail businesses need foot traffic, but they need they need vehicular access. And as she said, she can't think of one successful situation. I was in Charlotte yesterday, and they're downtown. I didn't see one closed street. What we need to do is figure out how it is that we get our pedestrian and bike lanes in place so that we can have these scooters and bring some vibrancy to this community. But talking about closing the street, it's a completely different outcome for a business. Especially these businesses are operating off of thin margins, some of them down there. You're anticipating that, I think closing it off for one-off events like Bianca does anyway, but to permanently close the street means that you've got your business on a dead-end road. And so you've got a dead-end business. And that's just not good for businesses.
People are interested. Bianca's just one person speaking for.
Well, I
a
mean,
business
I
owner.
agree. I mean, that could be something you take to the downtown business. But I think the headline tomorrow is going to be completely misinterpreted that the city council is even considering closing Hay Street. I
For the
mean,
reporters in here, not closing, but doing a survey
Okay.
to see
All
if
right.
they're willing to.
All right. Well, I'm not going to be able to support that. But that's the purpose of this. But Councilmember Davis, this is your motion, sir. Are you adding that or not? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Harry, you had a question.
Yeah, just one question. Earlier, whoever our speaker was in the beginning said that the county did not encompass the market in their analysis. Are we going to encompass the new proposed area that the county is going to do within our analysis? Because I don't think we get it true if we don't.
Yes, we will include the Crown Event Center?
Right, yes, sir.
As well as other proposed development
Okay.
downtown, as
Okay.
well as future traffic volumes.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So thank you, Bianca, for coming up here. So with that being said, I'm going to stick with my first motion. I'm sorry, I'm not going to add that in my motion. So I'm going to stick with my first motion is to move to option A to address the traffic flow. Thank you.
All right. So there was a second consensus to, okay, Councilman here. All right. And we've discussed it. Council, let's vote. Have you voted? Okay. Got to keep you focused. All right. All right. Motion carries 7-3. So thank you. Public service, thank you for the good work you're doing. I know you all are technical. You're figuring out how to make it work. So we had to get the politics in line. But thank you for sticking with us and being patient. All right. So 6.02, establishing a scoring matrix for priority of demo projects. So who would that be? Mr. Hewitt? Who is that? Ms. Baptiste, what's going on?
She went away.
She left us, then she came back. You missed us, didn't you?
That's right. Grass is green. Not always green on the other side.
Thank y'all. I am happy to be back.
What happened? What happened? You voting? So, Jennifer, did you make that correction, or how does that work, Madam Clerk? She pressed. All right, Councilwoman. All right, Ms. Baptiste.
You're on the spot. Good for you.
Good afternoon.
You okay? Okay.
Good afternoon. Here today to talk about possibly initiating a city council initiated demolition matrix. The Code Enforcement Department is charged with the task of actively enforcing several chapters of the City of Fayetteville's Municipal Code of Ordinances. They include Chapter 10 for fair housing, Chapter 14, housing, dwelling, and building, Chapter 27, trailer manufactured homes, manufactured home parks, and Chapter 30, the Unified Development Ordinance. These sections include regulations for substandard housing and subsequent demolitions of properties. Recently, the American Planning Associated spotlighted Genesee County Land Bank Authority process of ranking demolition projects. The Land Bank is a public-private organization that receives funding from several sources. Between September 2022 and February of 2024, the Land Bank received approximately $52 million in funding to accomplish their demolitions. By having the aspect of being a private entity, the Land Bank has the authority to purchase the properties, remove the structures, and also rehab structures. The Land Bank uses a scorecard to determine the feasibility of demolishing each property, and the scorecard uses several factors such as location, the extent of structural damage to the building, etc. Currently, the city of Fayetteville does not utilize a scoring system to evaluate demolitions. So we, in the Development Services Department, came together and talked about using such a scorecard to help us to become better stewards of the money that is allowed from City Council to the department to do demolitions. These criteria include structural damage, the time on the demolition list, whether there's a demolition ordinance, the financial cost of the project, crime, and location. As you can see in your packet as well as on the screen, the matrix has several factors. The first is being structural damage. With structural damage, we allotted 45 points for this criteria. For time on the demolition list, we allotted 24 points. Whether it has a demolition ordinance, we allotted 6. The financial costs, which means if it is under 10% of the annual demolition budget, then that project will be awarded 16 points. Whether it's a crime, there are frequent police calls or frequent code enforcement calls, then it will receive 3 points, and the location got 6 points. Of the projects that are currently being evaluated by the department are 505 Deep Creek, and when we applied the scoring system to this demolition, it got a score of 89 points. 1805 Ramsey Street got a score of 87 points. 949 Louise got 82 points. 423 Bevel got 82 points. 3248 Chandler Street got 80 points, as well as 2036 Rose Hill Road, 6447 Rayford Road, and then 4903 Murchison Road got 72 points, and 1909 North Pearl Street got 57 points. As you can see on the screen, this is a little reminder of the subject properties. The Deep Creek property, which received the score of 89 points. The Ramsey Street, which received 87. The Louise Street property that received 82. And the Bevel Road also received 82. Chandler Street received 80. Rose Hill Road received 80. And Rayford Road received 80. The Murchison Road project, which is more affectionately known as BJ's property, received a 72, and North Pearl Street received a 57. The department is asking that the city council receive the report and allow the department to initiate the demolition score matrix. Staff is available for any questions, as well as Dr. Newton, and we have 2 members from the Code Enforcement Department, Derek Planta, as well as Mr. James Rutherford. Are there any questions for staff?
All right. Have Councilmember Thompson and then Hare. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are these old?
This-
Okay. How about you, Councilmember
Yes,
Thompson? Right? Okay.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple questions. This Genesee County Land Bank Authority, how did the city of Flint obtain them, and how did they get so much money of $52 million?
Well, by them being a public-private entity, they're also able to go, they receive money from the city of Flint, as well as the county and the state. But they're also able to go out to outside entities such as private organizations and put in for grants through private organizations.
So how can we implement that here?
We're a public-funded entities.
Well, we are actually can talk about some of that at your special meeting on Thursday. Is that correct, for affordable housing? About how you have a land bank to actually create land that people can hopefully build houses or do redevelopment. But between that and the redevelopment authority, that could be one of the really good questions. See, Kelly's making detailed notes over there, and we'll have an answer for that on Thursday.
And Mr. Mayor, just so you can know that the mayor of Flint, Mr. Sheldon Neely, is my first cousin.
Is that right?
So I hope that is something that we can try to move forward. And because I have asked Mr. Planter, I think plenty of times, is how do we recoup our money from all these demos? I know the demo that he did on Rayford Road, close to Strickland Bridge Road, with that big apartment complex was there. I know that had to cost a couple $100,000 to put down. So my question is of the demos that we have done, how much have we returned? How much have we received in return from the property owners?
Well, I will say this, Council. Our great attorney was looking at, because from my understanding, if we demo a property and they're not a qualifier, no taxes or certain things to use the block grant dollars that the federal government gives us, then we put a lien on the property. But we have not enforced the lien. So I had heard probably.
Say that again, Mr. Mayor?
So, tear down building A, and it costs us $30,000. So the city puts a lien on it. But for 5 or 10 years, and after 5 years, I think she looked at, or 10 years, your lien is no good. So we have had, when she looked at it, I had her give everything from 10 years or less, and then 5 years or less, and you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in situations like that, to where we tear down stuff, we put the lien and just let it go and hope that someone sells it. But after 10 years, it drops off. But she can explain that. That was one of my purposes of us capturing that, selling some of this property that we've attached or either publicly owned, so that we can put it back in the mix. But she can talk about that.
Who sells it? You said it gets sold.
We can enforce our lien and
Right.
say, hey, we.
It expires. Lien expires. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then what?
So,
Thank you, Mayor Coven. So the short answer is we haven't collected much. We can, though, enforce those liens. It's through foreclosure. So it would require the city to foreclose on those liens, then sell them for, market value. We'd have to go through an upset bid period. There's a process, but we could do it. To Councilmember Hare's question, after the 10 years, we can't enforce it, but if someone sold it, we still could collect. So we can't take any action to get our money back, but if they sold it, we still have our lien. We could renew the lien if it's before the 10 years, but if it's after the 10 years, we're not able to collect it.
So, if I'm understanding correctly what you just said, so after the 10 years, and you can't collect, and I don't know how much the penalty has built up by that time, what are we just,
We're just out the money.
okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, since I still have the floor, let me
You do, sir.
Let me just clarify, because my frustration level is getting kind of up there now. So we use all of our demo money every year. I think we're at 150,000. I think we try to increase that in our budget to tear down, to make the aesthetics of our community look better. But at the same time, this is taxpayers' money that we're using to demo private property that we don't get any money back from. And this has been going on for over 10 years. So my question is probably to the attorney or to the city manager, what avenue of approach should we take to try to recoup some of this money from these demo projects that we're losing out on?
I have that one for you. We're folding that into the whole surplus property housing issues that we have. We've not done it in the past, in the recent past. I understand that we did do it before because most of the amounts are under 10,000, so we can go to small claims. We just haven't done it in the recent past, but we are folding that into our new processes and the whole review of the surplus property and getting things back on the tax roll and collecting money. We're working on it.
One final question, Mr. Mayor. Are we still at the max of our demo budget?
Yes. We are set to, I think, let's see, doctors here and Derek and JR as well, but if you want to come up, but I think if we were to look at BJ's, for instance, Derek or JR, how much is that about?
What you mean DJs? What you? BJ's. Oh, well, probably
Six figures. And so what's before you today is, as Dr. Newton takes the podium, is saying that we realize that we lose our money. And we basically go through our budget usually before Christmas, even Thanksgiving, if we really were hard, work hard at it. And so trying to make those dollars go as far as possible, the staff looked at a way to create a matrix that used the criteria that Jennifer covered to say if that's acceptable to you, then that's the matrix we will use to try to get the most bang for the buck that we can for the limited funds we have available. But Doc.
Thank you and good afternoon. We do not want to use general funds. That's our last resort. So when we finally get to where there's either grant funds or we get the property owner to take care of it and we're down to council-initiated demos and you do an ordinance, as you've seen, sometimes they'll fix it up themselves at that point and sometimes they don't. But what we haven't had in trying to be really good stewards of the funds that we're entrusted with is an objective way to say, let's look at some measures so that it's not just subjective. So these are the projects that you've already indicated as ready to go, and we're going to be out of monies, but we constantly look for other ways to do it. So what we brought in front of you was for you to recognize that we're doing what we can. We don't want to use up all the money in 4 months and then have to come back, even though you're willing to. So things like being able to work with grants, ARPA funds, other departments is what we're continuing to do. What we have in front of you, though, is the first time that we have seen, and it was based off of a conference that I watched online and then asked Jennifer Baptiste to work on this. Let's get some objective measures in place so that when you're seeing this, and some of you remember every one of these, some of you don't remember them, that we can move these on through. And it looks like we'll have other funds that we're going to use to leverage this so that we don't have to go into our general funds. But the idea of this work session material is just the objective part, not the, and frankly, we can keep throwing more and more money and we're going to keep finding ways, but what we're trying to do, and you've heard it a couple different directions and you're having a special meeting on it, is how do we keep more units in place versus tearing things down that could potentially be fixed.
Dr. Newton, just one follow-up. According to the, and I applaud the matrix. It gives us you a priority list on what to tear down first. But when it comes to the funds, if you have 5 on the priority list and the funds is only available for 3, do number 4 go to the top of the next funding period?
That's why we're showing you this, because if something is a low measure number and there's another one that happens, let's just take the house burns and there's no money.
Yeah.
So the one that has a smaller, lower number, but now we have a house burn.
Gotcha.
We think that we have come up with, as we've done a couple times now, where we're leveraging it like 4 to 1 of things getting fixed and not having to use these funds. We think we can continue to do that, but we also want the council to be well aware of the idea that this is costly and to have some form of objectivity in how we're handling it. So,
thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's see. So Jennifer, is this still, Councilman Banks McLaughlin, you had your hand up? Okay, so let me start from the bottom. Banks McLaughlin, then I have Hare, McNair, and Dino Councilmember Hondros, and Benavente.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thought
I
his
would be
was a mistake.
interested, it's what you said on our special meeting Thursday, as far as getting, city manager, as far as getting additional information with the American Planning Association Land Bank?
It was not going to be a huge part, but we can definitely add in information about how we would be able to acquire property, to offer it over to developers. And I guess if we were able to do it in a public-private way, then it also would not inure where it's something that's on the city's books, which would be ideal.
Yeah, I would love to get that, I mean, if we can discuss that, because that way, when we talk about general funds, not wanting to spend general funds, those funds will come from the American Planning Association, and that would assist nonprofit organizations to be able to come in a community and be able to possibly build affordable housing, or, you know, just giving back to our community versus us spending our money. But I do have a question as far as with, before it gets to the demo part. I know we only have, I can't remember about as far as how many funds we have that helps towards assistance for individuals that's struggling to be able to pay their taxes or fix up the property so that they don't get demoed. How often are we contacting them, or are we contacting them each time that we find some violations, to give them enough time to be able to fix those whatever situations they may have?
Yes, by the time they get to city council, you've seen those in the CCAMs that have been sent to city council initiated activities, that we have always gone and offered, sent them over to economic development, community economic development, to see what's there. I'm saying that wrong, economic and community development, ECD, to see if there's ways to help them. We have nonprofits that are worked with, and most of the items that come to you are the small, let me change my words. Very few items ever get to you. When we've done, I'm looking to try to recall the number, 11,000 code enforcement cases that get down to maybe 15 that you end up seeing. We have whittled it down to very, very few, and a lot of time to get there. Mr. Rutherford has met with them. He's given them time to work through the issues. Mr. Planner and the others who are working their lines are doing everything. Very few items get to you, but there are properties that get to the spot where something else has to happen.
Okay, because I just want people to know that we are, we do have an assistant program, and I hope that the community is taking advantage of these, these funds, so that it don't get to the, a situation where we have to
Yeah, and we can never say that enough. We need to keep saying that.
Pushing that,
Yep.
yeah, and I would like to see, I was going to say, if anything, we're spending more money, or I would think more money demolishing it, versus the money should be put towards more of the assistant program to help fix up those buildings so that it don't have to go to demolishing, because we're spending, like you said, taxpayer dollars.
Agreed, and that's happening. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin. Councilmember Hare.
And this may be for Thursday's meeting, but I would like to know, whenever we have scored a house or graded a property, and it is on the demo list, but it doesn't get demoed immediately. Maybe it takes some time, maybe a year or however long it is. Is there an open time in there or something? I mean, within that open time, if the owners start to repair it, is that, I mean, and that may not be for today's meeting, but maybe you can bring that in Monday.
I don't mind answering that portion of it.
How do we work with that? If it's met that grade, it's on the demo list, it's already come before us. Just wonder how that would work if the property owners work on it.
I think most all of you have been on council long enough to see where somebody has done the work before we're ready to take it down, and we bring a demolition item to you. So that can happen.
Okay.
However, the fact of somebody simply pulling a permit to try to stay a demolition that's designed, as all of you also know, that does not stop demolition orders from happening. We work every bit that we can to try to make sure that we bring it into compliance either by repair or at the end, another activity. So I think all of you have been around several instances of that one.
Yes, just thought about that.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Councilman McNair.
Oh, I just have a question about 949 Lewis Street. Where's that located?
Planner or Mr. Rutherford?
It's located on Hollywood Heights. Just take a skyboat, make a right on Zaxby's. Hollywood Heights makes your first right, and the floodplain right there. It's located right on the right.
Yeah, I was just wondering because it looks a little different, so thank
Yeah,
you.
this is one where they went to try to elevate it to get it up above the 100-year.
Yeah.
And it didn't ever get all the way finished, and you can kind
Yeah,
of see that there.
yeah, I remember the citizens over there, they're asking about that property as
Yeah,
we
this-
speak, and that's why I wanted
There's
clarity.
a string
Thank
of
you.
them in that line, and you can see what happened on this one, or if you're familiar with that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hondros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to receive the report.
Benavente, did you have a question before we move to that? Okay, so let me get
Well,
him and then
discussion.
I'll circle back. Councilman Benavente, I just want to get home to your fiance.
It's still a work day. I got cases to handle.
Trying to skip work.
I think that's what it is. Director Newton, I've had, people thinking that we can stop demolitions from happening, and I'm hoping that what you guys presented today is a way to take that further out of our hands, and hopefully there's ways that we can make the process maybe even accessible to people online. I mean, where there's got to be a better way to put it, like a pizza tracker, right? When you order your Domino's pizza, and you can see when they put it in the oven and when it's coming out. Is there some sort of public-facing apparatus where people can understand this is out of our hands here as a city council, and that once you've gone down this process and you've gone through these points, there's a line where it doesn't matter how many permits you pull or how many contracts you decide to hire last minute, we're past the point of that return, no return. Is this report and this new effort to quantify it this way going to help me with that issue?
It has the opportunity to help that way. Let's see what we can do to maybe show that. Remember, any council action is a council action, and council has shown in the past where they've decided to give people more time. We've discouraged that, but at the end of it, if they end up being council activities, and some people will share stories and tell versions of what they think has happened. But absolutely, if we can come up with like the pizza tracker idea of letting everybody see where we are and keep moving that as an estoppel, moving it to a spot where you can't go back, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's important because I don't want us to get in trouble with this kind of stuff.
All right, so I hear you.
I hear you.
That was
all right.
I'm still,
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
thank I work every minute of the day, Councilmember Benavente. So what I wanted to say to that, I was going to, thank you, Councilmember Hondros, but what I wanted to say was, if we do the numbers on this, there's 11,000 is what you said, reports that you do, correct? For
14,000 code
Was it
It's on a
14?
tracker on code enforcement cases.
14,000? Oh, my numbers are even better. So basically, by the time you get to where we are right here, it is 0.01% of everything that has happened, but it's that little of a percentage that is up there. So I do want to make a point, and thank you for your hard work. But I do have to agree with Councilmember Benavente. Do not fall out of your chair, Councilmember Benavente. When we get involved, there are places that are still in our city that are boarded up. They were on the demolition list. They are boarded up, and they've been there for 5 to 6 years. No growth is happening. Nobody's going to buy around it. Nobody's going to build around it. And we have to grow our city. And things like this are what will help us grow our city. So thank you all. I'm done.
All right. So there's a motion by, who was that? 100? All right. And seconded by, I think Banks McLaughlin had threw me the peace sign early on. She beat you guys. All right. Councilmember Hondros, you want to restate? All right. He's just receiving this matrix. All right. Council, look to you for action on receipt of this report. Who hadn't voted? All right. Thank you, Ms. Baptiste. Thank you, Dr. Newton.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Good work, Council. So, Council, as we move to 6.03, Ms. Jennifer, you want to start my time? All right.
Go fast.
All right, Council, I don't think this is hard to do. The other day, we had a great time at the Chamber event, and the purpose of the conversation was talking about and to make sure that we think forward and we're thinking long-term. I got excited today. I heard Mr. Reeves in his discussion about the Market House calling it the 2050. I think most of our thought process should be thinking about 20, 25 years out. Next year's 25, so 25-year out planning. Most communities are now reaping the benefits of previous 25 years. So where will we be as a community in the next 25? The report that Robert garnered for us that we'll get a presentation on the 10th just talked about the state of affairs where we are. 7% of the people in our community make over $100,000. I watched a very interesting debate on online this weekend about why we don't have a Trader Joe's or Neiman Marcus or any of those kind of places. It's because of our demographics and how they line up. 16% make $75,000 and above, and 21% make $50,000 above, and then we have 20+% that are below the threshold of what's considered to be the poverty line. So our rates are inversed in the way in which we want. The way that we fixed that, the do-outs were the recommendations: increase labor growth in our degrees. We have the lowest amount of degree holders and credentials for all our municipal peers, and an increase targeted program. So what I'm proposing today, I sent you a few examples. Communities have done innovation districts. I was thinking we've already laid the groundwork. Cool Springs became a living, breathing thing once we created a district. It branded it. Now it is cool, and it has things in the spring. So that's Bianca's thing with that. But I think that it's something that we point to and we've worked toward building. The area in and around the university, I think, is an option, which we've already got a huge footprint to make an innovation, maybe an innovation and entrepreneurship district. We're in collaboration with the university on certain things. We did see that two of our best performing sectors are health and defense. Cape Fear and Methodist have combined, and they're going to handle the health piece with the medical school. Excited about that and how that grows our top line number. And the defense and entrepreneurship. You know, DJ says it all the time that our other sector, our other industry is small businesses. So we have partnerships over there with the university, with growing businesses. And I think that creating a district wherever the defined place is, I was just thinking somewhere in and around the university, somewhere in and around where we have the targeted business actions with helping people with VBOC or the Veterans Business Council at the Hub. You've got the historic underutilization process there. You've got the Small Business and Technical Development Center with STPDC or whatever the acronyms are. But I think that creating an area that we can call innovation and entrepreneur centric, having staff come back with what that looks like in some other communities. I sent you Oklahoma City. I sent you Boston that has innovation districts. And what they've done, they make that to where it clusters businesses and things of that same sector and puts an emphasis on it. And I just think that as we think forward, this meeting today covered a lot of important stuff. It talked about how we deal with something in the past, over 100 years of a sensitive subject down the street in the Market House. Right now, I'm talking about I don't want to leave this meeting and not think about where the future and where we're going as a future in this community. And that's what I think this leadership is capable of doing, and just wanted to see if there'll be support to get to see what that looks like to create an innovation entrepreneur district. I still had a minute to go. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great idea, and I think we need to also patent that forward thinking, because as long as we're forward thinking, we know that Fayetteville is going to be the best it can be. You have a great point. I remember I took my wife to Cary to a restaurant, Broken Egg, and it was so great. I asked the manager, how can we get one in Fayetteville? Well, it has to do with the income of the community that you're surrounded with. I think with Amazon coming, with the titanium plant coming, with the School of Medicine coming out there, those are the things that's going to put us forward thinking to have those opportunities for our citizens to have those Marcus Neiman's, whatever it is that you have. So, yes, I'm in support, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Davis. Oh, Mario. Okay, Councilman Benavente.
Bates Davis is fine.
I see you had something about Orange Street School. What is that?
Well, originally, because Microsoft was doing a partnership with the 26 folks to send computers, it was. I thought that was more of a partnership than what it was, but it's basically the hardware that they're doing, which they will continue to partner them and other technological to provide equipment that's not necessarily targeted to that. And so the city had put resources in Orange Street School, and originally that was what I thought that was about.
Thank you.
Councilman Benavente? You're done. All right. So, Council, I'll look to you. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Second by Councilmember Thompson. Discussion.
Done.
All right, Council, let's vote.
They got me last time.
Oh, they made you stop. Gavel. All right. Thank you, Council. Yes, sir.
Okay, we gotta give them some extra time.